Second Soul Studios is a full-service production studio with capabilities for photo, video, podcasting, editing, co-working, and more. Our photo-video studio has a number of different backdrop choices and props to choose from. We also have a gourmet kitchen set, or if you're an upstart podcaster, you'll love our 4-person podcast studio. So what are you waiting for? Visit secondsoulstudios.com to book a tour today.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Learning Curves. This is Kelly Vassetti, and I am the owner and CEO of Second Soul Studios, Two Funky Hippies, and CEA Marketing Group. Today, I am here to interview my great friend, Karen Mace from Model Perfect Designs. And I am so excited to have you on my show, Karen. Karen and I have both known each other for years now. How many years have we known each other? 20?
15 to 20, I would think. Yes, absolutely.
15 to 20 years. And also I've known her husband, Frank, for probably another 10 years prior to that as well, because my ex-husband and Frank were very good friends.
Right.
And so we're here today to talk to Karen and learn about her business, learn about some of her struggles, and we're just going to talk business and everything that we've learned along the way. Just to tell you a little bit about Karen. Karen has a merchandising company called Model Perfect Designs. We both work in the building industry, so she is the one that decorates all the models and puts all the fun furniture, finishings, everything that when you're in a model that you're oohing and eyeing and going through that make them look beautiful. And my company is the one that markets the models. So we both do a lot of work with both builders, developers, and realtors. And we've got to do, we met up at a lot of events and became great friends. So today, I just want to talk to you a little bit about your business, Karen. So tell me a little bit about you and what you do.
First of all, I want to thank you. What a great opportunity it is to share my love for my business and a women-owned business, and just to express the joys and struggles that we face, correct? Anyway, as you said, my business is Model Perfect Designs. We've been around actually almost 8 years. We're a pretty new business. Before that, I had a company called Window Trends, and I did custom window treatments. Before that, I was a stay-at-home mom. And then before I had my children, I worked in the retail and then the outdoor sales business. So I have a sales background. Also, I had a merchandising degree from the University of Kentucky. And all of that sort of came together and birthed this business.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Isn't it kind of neat, like, especially when you go to college for something and then you end up doing all these other things, and then all of a sudden somehow it all comes back around. It's like, oh my gosh, look, I'm actually doing what I went to college for. It's kind of happening to me right now with Second Soul. Like, I went for radio, television, broadcasting, and now I own a video studio, which I never thought I would, but here I am 30-some years later.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, it worked that way for me. I had, like I said, the custom window treatment business, and I met someone on the tennis court that worked for a builder, and I knew that I needed to get into that business, but I had no idea how I was going to do it. And I prayed about it, but I was like, how do I go to this woman and ask her to help me? She doesn't even know me. And believe it or not, I went to the tennis courts and was playing it was a doubles tennis, and there was 8 of us playing. It happened to be 9 of us showed up. Well, I do what I would do, which is step out and let 8 play. And I said, I'll just jump in, after a few games, whatever. And all of a sudden I hear a voice from another tennis court say, hey, Karen, we need a 4th. You want to come play with us? Well, it was my new friend, Kathy McDaniel, which I know you know Kathy.
I know Kathy.
Well,
she is the best.
I had no idea this integral role that she was going to play for me. So I played tennis with her. I played horrible because I could not help but think about how I was going to approach her to get her to help me. But I just jumped through. I'm certain you've experienced this many times, but in my belief is that when you pray for something and the door opens up, it's like my job is to walk through it, no matter the fear I have, right? And fear of rejection has always been a struggle for me. So after we played tennis, she's walking, and I just walked alongside her, and I said, hey, and I just told her what I did, and she ended up asking me if I wanted to go for coffee. I went to her house. I ended up doing custom window treatments for her home, and she introduced me to the designer at the builder where she was working at the time, and I started doing the window treatments for their models. The designer was having a baby, and she said to me, do you know anybody that would want to come to Lakeland 3 days a week and work in our design studio? Because 2 of us are pregnant. Well, I hear this, or I feel this on my shoulder, sure as anything. Hello, you want to do this? And I said, I think I do. And I said, I want to do this because I needed to learn the building industry, right? I really had nothing to offer a builder other than I wanted to work for a builder or partner with a builder, but I had nothing to really offer them. So I went and I drove 3 days a week for 3 months to Lakeland, worked in the design studio, got this great feel for it. Well, she ends up having her baby early. We're working on a model. She can't finish the model, and I stepped my little happy fanny right in there and said, I'll finish it. And on the way home from the very first day, I called my husband and I said, I'm starting a new business. I can do this. This is exactly what I was made to do. And I drove home and came up with the name Model Perfect Designs, ordered business cards, and started my business right there.
Oh my gosh. Wow. What a great story.
Right? I mean, exactly. I mean, and when I say that God sort of parted the ways for me, he did. And believe it or not, Kathy McDaniel calls me about 2 months later and says, Karen, and I suspect that she and my friend Stacy, that was the designer, had spoken, but not to me. And she said, Karen, don't ask me how I know, but I know I'm supposed to help you do this. You want to bid on a model home for D.R. Horton in Orlando? Are you kidding me? Can I do that? Yes. I bid on it. They gave me an opportunity to work on a model, and I won a Parade of Homes award for the best model home in that square footage on my very first one.
Oh my gosh.
And from then,
Wow.
the doors just flew
Opened
open.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all you need is that one door open to really help your career just launch.
Well, and the confidence, right?
Yeah, and the confidence to do that and to take that on, and when you see that passion, it's right there in front of you. And I love the part of how you decided to to work for these people that were pregnant and jump in that role and really learn it.
Even though you would think it would be something that would, I don't mean it would be not below me, but like at my age, in my area, you would think in my career that I was going backwards. But I really wasn't, because it was a completely another skill set. It was such a struggle because I have never had a professional computer class. And I had to go in and learn their computer system. Working with their customers wasn't a problem because I had that experience in customer service.
I'm sure you were great at it.
But I had not worked on a computer, and having to learn to input all that information, and was quite a struggle for me. But I just knew that I knew that this was the right path for me to get me to the other side. And when you feel that prompting, and you feel you're like in this, I'm not a boater, but I know that the channel, right?
Yes.
When you feel that you're in that, then you know you're doing the right thing. And I felt the whole time that it was just what I was supposed to do. And so it gives you that confidence to just step in and do it. So it's awesome.
It absolutely does. And I love the fact that you had that mentor, the person, the friend, the guide to help get you there. Because and a lot of us are afraid, like, well, should I ask that person, and kind of get nervous about it. And it's exactly the same way I got into the building, because it's honestly, it's not, you talk to a lot of people, especially back then, starting a business as a woman in a man's industry, which is a building industry, was tough. But just getting into the right, and even D.R. Horton, that's huge. I mean, they're like number one builder in the United States.
I know.
For years.
It was, I mean, I can't even tell you the blessings that flowed from me, because it happened that I did work for D.R. Horton in Orlando, and then the president there calls the president in Tampa and says, hey, Darren, there's a girl from Tampa driving to Orlando to help me, and my girl in Orlando is driving to Tampa to help you. How about she stays over here because she's tired of driving to Tampa? Why don't you call Karen and see? He calls me. Are you kidding me? And says, come meet me. I go in and start and talk to him. He gives me the opportunity to do a few models. When I started, he had 2 other designers, firms, national firms, working with him. And as we speak today, I am blessed to be his designer, but owning my own company. But he and I are very tight, and I appreciate their business tremendously. But I know that I've earned the position that I'm in.
Absolutely.
Customer service is key to me. I don't care what it is that you're doing. It's key to me. And it's also, I think, the ability to be flexible. Mm-hmm. You know, when you've got customers and they need you, they might have needed you a week ago, but their schedule doesn't work because we all know the building industry is running behind.
It is.
And so you have to accept that. You don't beat them up over it. You just work with them, and then you find the next available when you can slide in there and you do the best job you can for them, and they reward you for it. Absolutely. And that's the key.
They do. And the builders have been such a huge gift for me. Similar situation where I was selling promotions to car dealers, and we did that for about 4 years, and I got tired of working in the car industry because you get beat up quite a bit, and I was looking for a new avenue, so I decided to try homes out because they big ticket items, promotions, and getting in and starting to figure out like who are the right people to talk to, like how can I get into these big builders. And I went into a building company, and I talked to this guy named David Pellets. I think you might know him. He used to run Standard Pacific Homes and Westfield Homes at the time period, and he introduced me to a woman called Brenda Kunkel. And Brenda was like the queen of the Builder Association, and said, you need to go talk to her and tell her everything that you're doing, and if she loves what you're doing, I'm sure she'll help you find a pathway into some of these other builders. And I was nervous, but I went and talked to her, and she told me everything I needed to do to get into the system. You need to join the Sales and Marketing Council. I think this product would work great for this and this and this builder. She gave me 3 builders. She called them up for me right when I was in her office. And basically, no one says no to Brenda Kunkel.
Don't you love that?
It says you have to meet Kelly, and I went there, and because Brenda Kunkel sent me over there, I already had that clout, and right away, before I knew it, I had a couple clients that were working for me, and I was doing builder promotions, and from there, I turned into a full-service agency, just by taking that chance, and there trying something different.
I love that. Well, I think all our experiences all along, if you allow yourself to be uncomfortable, and you push through that uncomfortability, I don't know if that's a word or not, but anyway, and get to the other side, there are always blessings. Always blessings. Even if you fall flat on your face, there's a learning blessing there, correct?
Yes,
and so,
absolutely.
All my career, I started out when I graduated from school, I wanted to work in retail. I moved to Atlanta, and I had missed all the interviews to get into the marketing or their management program that they had at Rich's back then. Well, I said, I don't care. I'm going to go in. I'm not fearful of where I start. All I know is I need my foot in the door, right? Because my father always taught me, humble yourself and get in the door, and then prove yourself by outworking everyone. So I went in.
That's good advice.
And I went to Lenox Square, went to their best store, interviewed for a salesperson's job. That's fine with me. I was a salesperson for 6 weeks. 6 weeks I got promoted to assistant manager. And I always dressed, I was a step above. I always dressed the position I wanted. And I flew right up the channel, and I was actually a manager before the people that were in the management class ever got out of class. Right?
I love it.
Yeah. And that's how I learned all my customer service skills. Working in retail or working in the restaurant industry, funny? Right? One of the two.
And then you're probably the one getting their resume wanting to work for you in retail.
Exactly.
I love that story. When I was in college, I worked. I was really interested in. Well, I was going to school for video, television production, but I also did a lot of work for the hockey team because I was a figure skater, and so I helped sell promotions for their program, and I did a lot of work for them. Plus, we would do like out of town. We would film the hockey games and do play by play. And a lot of times because the hockey team didn't have like a production company come in, we would just volunteer to come and just film the games back then. And it was interesting because a lot of these guys that were playing hockey came from Canada. They came from other places. They were going for a sports administration degree, and they were wanting to go work for a big hockey team one day. So that I was looking for an internship that summer, and somebody was like, well, why don't you just apply for the New York Rangers? I'm like, well, I don't have like that, I'm more television, radio. But I'm like, well, why don't I put in a resume and just see? Because I'm actually kind of doing PR for the hockey team here at college, so you never know. And I actually got a call from the New York Rangers.
Isn't that crazy?
Went and interviewed with them, and I got the job.
See?
And it was so funny because when I was working there and I was opening up people's resumes, a lot of those guys' resumes came through.
Yeah.
So when they were busy playing, I was busy doing all the work. So I'm like, I'm the one that got the job.
Yeah. Well,
But just like putting yourself out there, because you never know until you try. That's
Exactly.
that's the lesson here is like, don't ever like think you can't do something,
right, and don't be afraid to be uncomfortable.
go for it.
Well, once I got married, and I'd been working in retail, and you work a lot. Well, once I got married, my husband was in outside sales, and he had all this free time, and I worked all the time. So I decided, I'm done with retail. I'm going to go into the outside sales industry. My first job, copy machines. One of my best working experiences, though.
They say that's the best place to go get sales training is to sell a copy machine. I've heard that.
I did that.
They are the best salespeople ever.
Maybe 3 months to 6 months. I can't quite remember now. It's been a few years. But I had just an old-fashioned, gruffy old man. But he hired me because I was a female. I know he did because I didn't have any experience.
They like the good-looking women going out making all the sales
Well,
calls.
it's harder to say no at first, right? You can say no later on, but you can get in the door quicker.
Right. Yes, you can.
He drove me down the street, had me park my car, and made me walk up and down the street and knock on every single door. And no. But guess what? I sold 2 copy machines on that one day just by going out, walking in the door, introducing myself. And people needed them. But it was fantastic. I learned to be told no.
Yes.
I mean, and they would call me and someone would turn me down. Like, I thought I had the job, the business, but they were turning me down, and I happened to be in the office, and he's in the background pushing me to say more. And I saved a sale because he was back there pushing me, and I didn't want to not please him. Right? I wanted to make him, so I was saying things that made me uncomfortable, though. I'm not that pushy of a person. But I learned that you can, pushy isn't the right word for it, in other words, right? You just have to come at another angle or find out what their objection is and overcome that objection. Isn't necessarily being pushy. But anyway, it was a great experience. And then I left and got a job where I got a company car, so I thought I was big time then.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. It is scary, trying to go out and sell to these scary people, and they have these big objections, and being able to like not take no for an answer, but just coming up with another way of presenting the reason why they should buy this beautiful copy machine.
Just and the questions that you ask, and then they answer something so you can catch on that, and then solve that problem. That's the whole thing with sales, isn't it? Even what you do, it's what I do. They have a problem, we sell it. Remember, we solve the problem.
We solve the problem.
They've got a model. All their competitions, everybody's merchandising them because people need to know what that model's going to look like. My job is to make people envision themselves living there.
Right.
They want that house, which is, I get emails and phone calls all the time wanting to know where I get pieces of furniture and people want that, and it's such a compliment to me. I love it. I got one this morning. Where did you get that piece of art? And honestly, Home Goods.
Yeah, because that's a memory point.
Mm-hmm.
You're creating memory points in these models that people don't forget. And they're either envisioning that in their own home, but because they remember that really cool piece of furniture, or they remember that fabulous painting that was on the wall, and therefore they're going to remember that because they might have went to see 5 other builders that day.
It's
But
key.
it was your beautiful work and those models that made them remember that builder and that model to make them want that home.
It's true, because when we moved down to Florida from Kentucky, we were the customer, right? Which was really beneficial to me in this business, because I remembered being that person coming in, and I remember saying, oh, remember the house with the whatever on the wall, you know, the big sunshine on the wall? That's how I would describe the model. And that would help me remember all the things about that house. So each house had something that made me think about it. And that, you know, I remember that when I'm merchandising a home, and I want it to take on a personality, not just some pretty pieces that are in there,
Right.
you know, but personality. And also a big thing for me is proportions, making the house look as big and bright as I can do. So that's where my college days come into play, because I actually learned all of that in college. I'll go into because I stage also for realtors, and I just had a consultation with a customer a couple days ago, and I walk in and it was explaining myself why you moved this here, and their eyes are like, I had no idea. I'm like, oh yeah. If you put things up, and like when you walk into a room and your eye follows and your eye dances up and down, then you'll find it more appealing. You don't really realize that you do. So that's why you don't want to hang things straight all along the wall when you're merchandising, because it's not as interesting to the subconscious, I guess.
Oh, so is that why you never hang a painting like the same level? You one's here and one's a little bit lower, kind of thing.
Yeah, because when you walk, you want your eye to dance, we call it.
Oh,
Yeah,
interesting.
lots of interesting things like that. And mirrors, you know, if you need a light source, put a mirror across from a window, and it's like another window. It's another light source in a small area.
Wow. Does it also make the room look bigger, having the mirror?
Oh, yeah. What's real important when you go into a small space, you want to engage your peripheral on one side, but not engage the peripheral on the other side. So I see something on my right side that I recognize as a end to the width, right? Mm-hmm. But on this side, I don't want anything, so my subconscious thinks it goes on forever. So it makes it appear like it's bigger.
Right.
Right. But if you put something here on each side, then it appears smaller.
Oh.
It's fun. It is.
Psychological.
Some of it is like just tricks.
Yeah, it really is getting the person's psyche when they're going through.
Yeah.
Creating those visions and, again, the memory points, getting them to remember that particular model and that location.
I think so. But I also think the biggest skill, though, is passion for what you do, don't you think?
Yes.
Loving what you do. I mean, I can't believe at my stage in my career that I feel like I'm a newbie, and I have the enthusiasm, you know, of a 25, 30-year-old that could be my child, you know? I mean, I just enjoy so much what I do, and I tell people all the time, I live a very young life. I'm busy, but I love so much what I do.
Oh, you have to.
That I think it just shows in what you do. The outcome of all your hard work is lifted up just because of your enthusiasm.
Did you ever have a situation, I guess we talk about a lot of the positive things, but maybe something that happened, maybe that you remembered that it's like, oh my gosh, and when that happened, it was a turning point for you where it might have been something that seemed bad at the time when you were going through it, like, oh my God, this is like the worst thing ever. You probably lost a ton of sleep over it, but then you were able to overcome that and you had some type of learning outcome from that situation.
Tremendously. Well, my whole world turned. My first husband became ill. I was a stay-at-home mom, as I said. we moved to Florida, and believe it or not, I was here about 2 years, and I had no idea what it was. I'd gotten my son and all my kids into school. I have 3 biological sons. And I did my first year of being that perfect stay-at-home mom, volunteer, carpool, did all that kind of stuff, and it was lovely, but I needed more. And I felt this need to do something that was my own, but I had no concept of what I wanted it to be. And I was sharing this with my friends, and they said, "What are you talking about? Look what you've done with your window treatments in your house. Make window treatments for people." I can't do that. Oh, yes, you can. So I started doing that very, inexpensively. I just like I was in school. I'm reading every book. This was before there was that much on the internet, but I did a lot of studying and learning, and I worked making everything myself in my guest room. Tons of learning, right? My business was called Window Trends. And my husband got sick. On Christmas Eve, we're at a Christmas party with the Lightning. Some of our neighbors were members of the Lightning team, and we're there. The next morning, I'm at the hospital with my husband, doubled over in pain. Little did I know that he had pancreatitis. Little did I know that he had pancreatitis due to alcoholism. I had no idea. I was that's shocking. Call me what you want to call me, Pollyanna, maybe, I don't know. But he was a executive with a medical company, and he traveled all over the country, and he entertained all the time, and it got the best of him. And it was horrible. But my life went from what I thought was a perfect family of 5, beautiful home, everything was lovely. And the next day, he's fighting for his life, and I am praying for him to live. And he was in intensive care from December till February, stayed in the hospital till April, lost 100 pounds, and was never the same again. He could not overcome alcoholism, and he died 3 years later. I divorced him 2 years later because once it came out that he was an alcoholic, he couldn't live with that title, and he couldn't overcome that demon.
Right.
And he just took a nosedive. And as much as I tried to encourage him that he could overcome this, and for our children, whatever, I was a wonderful cheerleader, but I was also told by his therapist that I was a really wonderful enabling wife. And so I had to take a step back and recognize that my enabling was only hurting my boys. And so we chose to ask him to leave in order to encourage him.
Enabling by staying around.
Mm-hmm. Well, and just accepting everything he dropped in responsibility, I just picked it up. Yeah. So he had no consequence for his bad behavior, right?
Right.
So I gave him a consequence, and unfortunately he couldn't overcome. And he passed away, I guess, about 14 months after I divorced him, he passed away.
Wow, that's a really hard choice to make.
It was a horrible choice to make.
Yeah.
I made it. I was just saying the other day, I don't know that I would have been strong enough to have done it if it wasn't for my children, but I saw what they were seeing.
Yeah.
And the lessons that they were learning were not the lessons I wanted my boys to learn.
No.
And so I sat them down and I said, the doctor says your daddy's going to die if he doesn't quit drinking. And we know your daddy's secretly drinking. And so I think we should ask your daddy to move out until he can stop drinking, and then he can come home. I said, but I want us all to be on the same page, because I knew if I did it on my own, it would get turned around on me.
Yes.
So we did it by committee, and unfortunately he couldn't overcome. So the beauty of that is that I had this little business called Window Trends that I had been, and I said at the time, I feel like I have somebody's foot or their hand on my back pushing me, but I did not understand why until this happened to me. And then I recognized that it was the prompting of our Holy Spirit that was encouraging me to get myself independent, because I would have really been a bad place if I hadn't had that little bit of independence that I had birthed for myself, that I was able to grow my business. And then that little business grew into Model Perfect Designs. And here I am today. But I would have never been here if it wasn't for that experience, which was, like I said, devastating and horrible. But I wouldn't go back and be that girl again. I wish my children hadn't lost their daddy.
Right.
Because it's a horrible thing to watch your father drink themselves to death.
Wow. Worst thing.
But yeah. But
it makes you stronger
and I'm so
as a person
right.
when you go through something like
right.
that.
Well,
even your kids.
Right. Oh, and they are. And we all found our faith. I am a believer, and I know who carried me through. But I also know the strength that I have. And I'm not afraid of anything. Because if you can, between my relationship with Jesus and my family, because my parents literally walked out of their house in Kentucky on Christmas Day when I told them David was sick and drove to their home down here and did not leave until August. They just dropped everything. When they went back home in August, their Christmas tree was still up. But they knew where they were needed. And I was blessed to have that kind of a family behind me. And so here I am.
Wow.
I know, right?
That's quite a story.
Yeah. But anybody that's listening, it's amazing because I promised myself when I was going through the pits of hell that I would not go through this without learning something for it.
Yes.
Because there's one thing to go through a bad time, but to go through it for nothing is just a devastating thought to me.
Right.
And I knew that something good had to be on the other side to push me through. And I promised, because I was so embarrassed. It was a really embarrassing thing for me to have to handle this situation. And I fought through that embarrassment because that's one of my weaknesses is I want to appear perfect all the time. And showing my weaknesses is
Right.
very, very difficult. But I promised I wouldn't hide this story because every time I've shared it, people have said, my brother's an alcoholic. My father's an alcoholic. My uncle's an alcoholic. My mother. There's so many people out there that have dealt with this disease, and it's devastating. And when you share it and people can go, oh, it's not just me. Because we don't, it's not something pretty to talk about.
Right.
But there are, victories along the way. There's a lot of people that have dealt with it and have been able to fight through it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, my boy's daddy just couldn't do it. It was, the devil got his soul and he just went south, without looking back. But there's a lot of people and there's lots of resources for people. And so I just want to share encouragement because there is goodness on the other side of tragedy if we just open our eyes for it, right?
Yeah. You have to open up your eyes and know that there is light on the other side. You just have to
Push
through it's an awful journey to go through, but once you get to the other side, there's all kinds of surprises waiting for you.
And it's sometimes not just pushing. I mean, sometimes it was a crawling, on my belly, on my face.
Yes.
But there is beauty on the other side of it. And I am honestly very thankful for the journey. Like I said, I hate it the way it happened, but I'm thankful.
Oh my gosh, that is such a story. I'm so thankful that you shared that because I'm sure there's a lot of listeners out there that could be possibly going through something like that or something similar or having some type of pain that they're dealing with, and that it needs to be shared and more people should talk about it because I think it just really helps everybody, no matter what the situation is that they're currently going through. That you can get through this. And might take a little bit, but just keep going and keep trying.
Yes, and listen to those promptings and that little voice that you hear. He knows how to guide us, and it's wonderful once you get that habit of starting to pay attention. That it's not, it's coming from the right place, and normally you're gonna be successful if you follow it.
Yeah, and that's probably one of your biggest advice is to listen to that voice and don't ignore it, follow it, and don't be afraid to get out there and try something new.
I've got a little story if you want me to tell you real quickly.
Yes, I would love that.
When I was early on, I believe David had passed maybe, but not very long. And I was struggling financially because not only did my husband drink himself to death, but I had no idea that he had gambled away all of our funds, my children's college funds. He had refinanced our house, forged my name, just a lot of things that I had no idea, right? He lived just a separate life that I was aware of. But anyway, so I set that story to tell you that I was in a position, I had a job that I was going to finish, a window treatment job, and I needed to finish that job because I needed the paycheck, is what I'm getting to. And I'm packing up my truck, and I'm loading in, and if you read about window sizes and how many brackets you need for a rod, there's certain guidelines that you follow, right? Well, in my mind, I needed 2 brackets. But this particular bracket, I had one left over in my office that I had used on another job. But I brought the box of 2, and I put in my truck, and I heard, as clearly as if you're speaking to me now, the Holy Spirit say to me, you better bring that 3rd bracket. And I ignored it because the book tells me you only need 2.
Right.
I heard it again. I mean, honestly, to the point I turned my head. You better bring that 3rd bracket. Well, I'd been beat down enough into this world in the last few years that I knew, what do I have to lose, right? So I went in the office and I grabbed that 3rd bracket and I threw it in the back of my car and sort of chuckled at myself. Yeah, right? I don't need it, but I'm going to take it, just in case. So I get to my job, my guy's hanging the window treatments for me, and I always would take the customer to another room so they weren't watching every single little move. I hear my installer go, hey, Karen, do you got a 3rd bracket? He goes, I don't know why. He goes, but this rod really needs a 3rd bracket. I'm like, oh, yeah, I happen to have a 3rd bracket.
Oh, wow.
But the story was, the lady lived in New York. Mm-hmm. She was catching a plane that night. If I hadn't had that 3rd bracket, those drapes wouldn't have been hung properly. I wouldn't have been paid, and I'd have been in trouble. So the point being was, I heard that voice, I paid attention to that voice, and it covered me for an unforeseen need that I had. So a lot of times, people call it all kinds of things. Of course, I call it the Holy Spirit, the prompting that you hear. Pay attention to it.
Intuition for some people.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, we all have our words for it, but listen to it, because more times than not, it's saving you.
Oh, it is.
Follow it, right?
Intuition or
your
gut.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. I I'm very intuitive to a lot of things too. For some reason, I just have this certain feeling, and I'm like, oh, I just feel a certain way about that, and it's usually correct.
That's
and
right.
if I don't listen to it,
You want to kick yourself.
Be like, why didn't I listen to? I knew it. I
knew better, right? How many times
knew
have you
better.
said
I didn't listen, and I just always have this like feeling, and you got to listen to it. Let it guide you.
Exactly right. Yeah. So it carried me a long way, and now it's like a joke at my house. I mean, it's a joke. I mean, seriously, this morning, last night, my husband pulled a casserole dish out and broke it all over the kitchen. And so I went in, he cleaned it up, because I believe in letting people clean up their messes, but then I come in behind him because there's little shards of glass here and there. This morning I'm fixing my oatmeal, and I go to grab the salt shaker, and when I grab it, I feel something grainy on the side, like sharp, like a piece of glass was on the salt shaker. And I got rid of that, and I put it on my oatmeal, and then all of a sudden, I'm like, here, don't eat that. What if glass went inside there? And I'm like, and I took a bite, and I'm like, are you crazy? Did you not just hear that in your head? What if there's glass in that salt shaker? Hello? Because I'm like, down the disposal, I didn't eat it. But just that little bit that'll save you. I mean, you could be really sick by eating a piece of glass.
Yes.
No matter how teeny tiny, right?
You could get inside there and cause all kinds of problems.
But my personality is a what the heck, right?
Yeah.
But I've learned, oh, wait a minute. Somebody's taking up for you.
Better listen.
Yeah.
Yep.
It sounds stupid, but if you're in a hurry doing something, it's easy to not pay attention.
Yeah. I found that sometimes when I'm like, a lot of times in my car when I'm driving, I could have gotten in some awful accidents because I'm a terrible driver. I'm really bad. But every once in a while, like,
Remind me not to go anywhere with you.
but I'm bad. But I got my guardian angel that that I think drives around in the car with me, because all of a sudden I'll hear something going like, Kelly, or something like that, and I'll like jerk my wheel or do something, and right at the time where I'm like, holy, oh my God, like I could have totally crashed into something, but something just tells me that I need to, like, because I can daydream and go off into my own little world. And my daughter's always like giving me a hard time and stuff, but for whatever reason, I have somebody that is always watching out for me, like causing that instant reaction to take place right when it should. And I always, like the time when I really, like that presence, like you were mentioning, like I have my intuition, which I wouldn't say is a presence that I feel, but I feel this presence when I'm driving in my car. It's really weird.
It's a gift once you recognize it.
Yeah.
It truly is a gift. And
So I've started to talk to it.
exactly. Oh,
Like I'll be like, what do you think? I'm like, you're gonna think I'm crazy, but I'll have conversations sometimes. I'm like, well, help me make this decision here.
oh, I don't.
Like,
When I was raising my children, it was a perfect way to raise children when they would ask you for something. And I'm the kind of person, I don't like to say no. Even in my work environment, I don't like to say no. So I was trained, you don't say no in sales, right?
I don't like to say no either.
You come up with another answer for them and say, well, let me tell you what I can do, right? But with my children, I would say, think about it. And then it was a big deal with them, especially after my husband was gone, that I didn't just say no right off the bat. And I'd let them debate me, sell me on it, tell me whatever. And then if I really didn't want to do it, I'd say, I have to pray about it. That was my deal, right? And I honestly would, but that would give me clarity. And my story one time, my middle son, just not the student, not a bad student, but just wasn't his joy. But he loved to work with his hands. And we were getting ready to do the college thing, and he said, Mom, and he didn't want to go away, so he went to community college. And after a year, he said, Mom, really, I don't want to go to college. I want to learn to be a mechanic. I want to use my hands. I want to go do this. And I'm like, oh, Jordan, because in my brain, you need to go to college. And I said, let me pray about it. I swear to you. I prayed about it. I got up the next morning. I walked into my bathroom. And back then, I had a television in my bathroom. And I had the news on. And the guy does a story about how many kids are going to college and shouldn't be there, and they should be going to technical school. Oh, my God. Thank you. Seriously, right?
Yeah.
Next morning, I'm like, okay, Jordan, I prayed about it, and we'll sign you up. And he works for me now. He can fix anything, but he did his, went and did technical school for mechanics, and then worked for car dealerships a bit. And now he works for me and has a power washing business, but it's all his hands. He uses his hands, right? Because we all have our gifts. Not everybody's gift is through college. But anyway, I love that story. So I strongly believe in praying before you make a decision.
That's great. No, I think you've given our listeners quite a bit of advice and some lessons that you've learned and how you've overcome so much.
Yes.
And look at you now.
I'm blessed beyond, and love what I do and what you do, and the opportunities we've had to come together. It's been fantastic. The website you've done for me, I love.
Thank you.
And your training, I'm trying so hard on Instagram and social media. I'm working it.
Yep, and that's the biggest thing with marketing. It's something that has to be done all the time. It's not something that results aren't going to come fast, but they will come over time. And then once you get it going, and then all of a sudden it will just start clicking, and you'll start getting more business. People will start seeing you. You'll start growing your followers, and it takes time and it takes process, and it does take some money to spend. I think a lot of people don't quite think they can magically like make things happen, but it's like, no, you you got to put the time into it, and you have to understand it, and then kind of watch it grow from there.
Well, but there is also a difference. Of course, at the beginning, like you said, having to spend the money and you try to do it yourself, and then you try to find someone to do it on their side job to save a little money. But there really is a time when you want to play with the big boys, you've got to let the professionals do it,
Yes.
correct?
Yes,
And,
absolutely.
Right, and I'm in a position in my life where I've got these wonderful people that work for me. Some full-time, some part-time, and I'm trying to build a legacy now. I'm in this place where I want to create and make opportunities for other people. It's not just about me, right? It's
Yes.
about others. And there is a wonderful, wonderful piece, I think, and another completely separate part of enthusiasm when you're doing something for someone else. And it's not just to put bread on the table, right? It's
Right.
because you can change people's lives. And that was something that I promised when I started Model Perfect Designs, was that I was not going to just be a model merchandiser, but that I was going to change people's lives. And we actually had a guy that worked for us. When we first started, we did a lot of work on the weekends because I could get people that had full-time jobs that wanted to work extra, and they would work on weekends. So we had someone who worked in my brother-in-law owns a restaurant, Hat Tricks, and there was a guy that worked in the restaurant or back in the kitchen.
I love Hat Tricks.
Yeah, Hat Tricks is wonderful. We worked in the kitchen, and he had a wife and a baby, and he wanted extra money, so he worked with us on the weekends. Well, one day he came to Frank and he said, "Listen, I can't work for you guys on the weekends anymore. I have a new job." I was like, "You do? What?" He goes, "I applied for this job working for this forklift company or something." And he said, "I got to tell you, I would have never, ever thought that I had the possibility of getting that job if it wasn't for you. Working for your company taught me that I have other skills that I could do other than working in a kitchen at a restaurant. And I have the confidence to know that I could do this." And they applied and they're going to train me. And he goes, "I got to thank you because you changed my life."
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the best feeling when you have people come work for you. And, I see people, been doing this for 25 years, and I always get really sad. I always get kind of anxiety thinking, someone's going to happen. They're going to get poached, or, this thing's going to happen to one of my great employees. But in the end, especially if I try to have a good relationship with most of my employees, and when I see that they've learned so much by working with me and they go on to just do these great and awesome things, that just makes me feel really good. And I'm just so proud of them. And just to be able to continue on that journey and watch them and all the things that they do and still be able to communicate with them, then I feel like, I was probably a pain in the butt to work with, but they learned something from me.
Yeah, exactly.
Look how good they're doing out there,
Well, absolutely. And I think what we have, one of the greatest lessons that I've learned is that when you work, whether it's money or talent or skills, whatever, instead of holding so tight to them, that if you let them flow to you through your hands off to someone else, then you're not just letting go, because you get more.
You do.
It's like
Yes.
you're a vessel that flows through blessings of whatever
You
it
do.
is. And that's a lovely, I think, when you get to the place in your life where you recognize you don't have to hang on.
No, you don't. And that's it's sad to see them. Like now I'm like, well, aren't you, I just had 2 people leave. Well, aren't you freaked out? I'm stressed because it's adding more work for me right now. But I also know that they were wonderful people. I loved working for them. But every time I've had somebody leave, something better or another opportunities come along to help enhance my business even more. So I am just really now looking forward to the opportunity
Yes.
of working with 2 great people that are going to bring a lot to the table from my agency, because I know over history that's happened over and over and over again. So I'm welcoming this opportunity of my new 2 new people that I've been interviewing for over the last couple of weeks. It's exciting. I just wish I had more time. It's hard because of you have to take on a lot more responsibility, and interviewing is not my favorite thing.
Right.
But once they get here, it's like, okay.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Well, and once again, you know that it's attitude, right?
Yeah.
Attitude is everything.
It is.
Yeah.
You have to always know that, hey, I'm going to get through it. It's going to be fine, and really happy for this other person. And
in whatever, I just found out my sister was diagnosed with colon cancer, and she and I were talking, and she has this remarkable attitude. And I'm like, yes, because I think that is just key, right?
It is key. Attitude's everything.
Getting through it.
Yes.
So whether it's a new employee or an illness or a death or whatever, pushing through it, as we said.
It's a lot to go through at the time, but when you push through it, there's always something, just being positive. I've noticed a lot of people who've gotten, sick or had something really wrong with them, that if they kept that positive attitude, most of the time they can really fight through it.
Well, and I'm certain, I can't quote anything, but I believe that doctors can actually, say that is an actual fact of a characteristic of a person.
Don't be a victim to your disease.
Yeah,
A lot of people can be.
Yeah, well, we can all. It's unfortunate what our minds will do to us
Yes,
sometimes.
I know. Minds are a terrible thing sometimes. But so anyway, I think we're gonna have to wrap up. But I appreciate you being here today.
Well, thank you so much.
Fun.
I enjoyed it, and I love my kimono.
Yeah, she's wearing her new kimono from Two Funky Hippies. And our beautiful necklace.
And
some nice earrings from Glam Gypsy.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yes, I love it. I love it when all my friends come in here and they go in our shop and come out with new clothes.
Exactly.
You can come here, you can do a podcast, you can come out with a new wardrobe all in one time.
Absolutely. Yes.
So, yeah, well, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you,
It's been
sweetie.
fun.
It was my pleasure.
Okay. Mwah. At CEA Marketing, we take your business, your passion, and your why, and we sell it. If you're unsure where to start marketing your company, CEA Marketing is here to help. Our team at CEA has tons of experience and top-notch training, which helps you take all the stress and confusion out of marketing your own business. After years of working with large companies like Pulte Homes, the Outback Bowl, and Metro Places, we guarantee the successful implementation of a marketing strategy.